Welcome everyone to week 6 of Mastering Self, where today we're going to be moving into integration. We're going to pause and offer up just a little less new content, but really ground and consolidate the content that has been offered up to this point.
And as we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of country that we're calling in from, the Turrbal and the Yagara people, as well as the Awakwa people of the Bundjalung Nation, as well as also the traditional owners of country across Australia that are represented here as well today. I'd like to recognise their ongoing connection to land, waters and culture and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging.
And so we're going to continue on with number 3 there. For today's session, we are going to start off with section A, which will be integration of where we're going to attend to the ego construct and the Enneagram. So bring those two together. And we're going to have a discussion around that and a little bit of an exercise there. Ground and answer any questions that you might have arising around the ego construct and how that's playing out within the typology. Then we're going to move into section B, where we'll be integrating stages of development and consciousness. And there'll be an activity there on feedback and how you receive feedback. And then we're going to move into the first bit of the integral health and well-being, not the first bit, but another part of the integral health and well-being element with brainwave frequencies and consolidating your daily practice as well, and why these brainwave frequencies are useful to understand. And for today, the facilitators here will be Marion and myself, with Lawrence and Sarah jumping in on the group discussions. And so if we can close our eyes for a moment. Yeah. Whether it's morning or evening, whether you're feeling like you've done a lot or are about to do a lot or not at all. Either way, let's simply arrive here in this same space together with the practice that has been practiced by you, as much as it has or as little as it has. So with your eyes closed there, taking a deeper breath in and all the way out. And allowing your breath to naturally start to slow down. And with each breath out, slower and slower, allowing the tension from your body to leave along with the breath, riding the breath on its way out. Releasing just a little more tension each time. And doing a gentle brush with your awareness over your face. Noticing any tension that may be sitting in the forehead, relaxing, softening and melting that. Muscles around the eyes, softening those. Notice the gentle shift that starts to occur as your entire system starts to slowly slow down. Relaxing your jaw, mouth closed, tongue resting gently on the roof of your mouth. And finally, allowing your shoulders to melt away from your ears. Allowing yourself to be here in stillness as stillness. For the final few moments, a gentle check-in with your body and releasing and melting away any tension that may have crept in. Aware of all that is contained from your left shoulder to your right shoulder, to your forehead, back down to your left shoulder. Aware of your body sitting within this triangle and softening. Taking a deeper breath in and all the way out. When you're ready, gently opening your eyes. And getting ready for a playful session that we are super psyched to be having with you. And in this session, you're going to get the most out of it if you really allow yourself to open up, to explore where you're at now, where you would like to be, and put your hand up and express, and let that be part of the work that accelerates your growth here as well. So yeah, let's have a good time. On to you, Marion. Sarah, could you turn down your volume a little bit, please?
Okay, so as Dan mentioned, we're going to be stepping into an integration session all about making it real. And what we're looking at here is building on the layers of the last 5 weeks. So over this period of time, we've been exploring the constructing of the ego, how the storyteller operates uniquely for each of you. And you've been observing that at play in relation to some of the practices that you've been exploring. And then we've layered that in and built it with the map or the model of the stages of adult development from integral theory. And both the stages, the Enneagram, are maps that we can look through and start to use to explore aspects of the self. And so that's what we're really looking at doing today, is looking really closely at how do we take what may have been conceptual or new knowledge and deepening it down into a really real and grounded practical difference and shift that's occurring for you week by week in each moment. So the last 2 weeks have really been exploring the Enneagram, using the Enneagram model and leaning into the virtue to facilitate that growth through the levels of health, and also exploring the stress point as well. So today what we're going to do is to explore the ego constructing in the context of the Enneagram first, and spend a little bit of time there. And then we're going to head on and explore feedback through stages of adult development as a really practical example of how these stages come into play in different scenarios. Let's jump in. So first of all, as we head into ego constructing in the Enneagram. So as mentioned, this is really looking at how does for each of us, the ego constructing process happen. So the process of storytelling, which for each personality, for each ego construct, will be unique. It's going to build in traits, personality traits that we have explored through the Enneagram, as well as then other aspects of the ego constructing that were touched on earlier. So that are values, memories, experiences, beliefs, and it melds together into the storyteller that we experience, narrativizing throughout the day.
So it's really an exploration of which thinking and behavioral patterns are you starting to be able to see more and more now? Yeah.
Things that might have operated slightly outside of awareness, or maybe that we had a bit of an idea, oh, this tends to be something that I do, but we're starting to bring those patterns into full awareness and really explore them and have a look at them. When, how, what does it look like? What does it feel like in the body when these thinking and behavioral patterns are operating for us? And from that place of awareness then gives us more choice. So we're going to take 5 minutes for each of you on your own in silence, having a look and exploring these 2 questions. So question number 1, in relation to the thinking and behavioral patterns of the predominant Enneagram typology and the construct, what has been your biggest learning so far? Maybe spend half the time here. What has been working for you? And then moving into question 2, what did you expect to be landing in relation to content so far, but it kind of isn't landing for you? Why do you feel that this is happening or not happening, and what would need to change for that shift to be different?
What shifts were you expecting by this point of the course, potentially, in terms of your behavioral patterns or thinking patterns, but it's just not happening? And it might be content related, or it might be simply a shift or expectation you brought into the course. And why do you feel it's not happening? And what do you feel would need to change for it to happen? So taking 5 minutes now, we'll put some, let's say, thinking music on for you, and see you at the other end of 5 minutes. Couple minutes now.
Also, as you go through this exercise, what have you not noticed? What have you not become aware of? What is the subject? What are you still subject to? And so as you finish up there, writing your last few words down, we're going to go into breakout room of 3, where you will simply share. You'll have 10 minutes to share between the 3 of you. For Jacek, you might go with in a breakout room with one other. Jolanta's taking part. And you're simply going to share these 2, you know, part of the time sharing, you know, what's working, what you're learning, and then what is it that's just not landing just yet, or, you know, not understanding or isn't happening for you, and why do you think this is the case, and what do you think you'd need to change for it to be happening for you? So enjoy that breakout room, and we'll see you at the other end. Then you need to do the breakout room.
Is Lawrence?
Lawrence dropped off the call.
Sure.
His internet
Yeah, all good.
dropped off. Give us a moment to fix this, and then you can go into a breakout room in a minute.
Let's go add these people. There will be, I might create an additional room. There will be a room of 2. And okay. Breakout rooms open.
My mom just messaged me that she is fixing something in the house or whatever, so she might not jump in all the rooms. That's what she just said.
Yes.
Cool.
Oh. To earth here. What played out in those breakout rooms, and what's been playing out over the last 6 weeks? What's been landing? What hasn't been landing? This is your space, your time to shine, ladies and gentlemen. David Spain, what's been happening?
Well, I felt like I had a really interesting chat with Melissa and Jacek, but I was interested to hear from Melissa. She's an achiever, so she's, set a pretty high bar in her life, and she's been a busy person. But I got the sense that she's really taken time out morning, in the evenings, and even during the day in her sitting practice, and she's found that greatly beneficial. So I'm really relaying someone else's story, because I was sort of almost interviewing, I think, in our session. And also we laughed, and she said, you know what, it's been really great to be more playful and spend this time with myself. So I think it's been a real release. That would be my sense, Melissa, speaking on your behalf, that it's been insightful to have that ability to release something each day. And it was interesting hearing from Jacek about, it's been a great deep time of reflection on his life, and being a lot more open and honest. And this course has given him some structure and some framework with which to do that, which perhaps he was too fearful or unable to do before. So I thought that was really interesting. Lost you there, Dan?
Can't hear you. David, on the back of that, your reflections, if you feel comfortable to share.
Yeah. I think I'm a type 7, and predominantly a type 7. It was really, for me, it's been about gratitude. I think I haven't really stopped to think about all the wonderful things that are around me all the time, little and small. So I've really been focusing a lot on just simple gratitude. And it's really made me a lot calmer, and it's made just a lot of things in my daily life easier, I think, just simpler. So that's probably been my biggest learning, certainly from the Enneagram. My sitting practices are just, it's sort of ingrained in me now. I was describing it to Melissa as a luxurious time with yourself. Really, it feels justified. Perhaps in the other concept or any other time in life, you might feel like it's a bit of a luxury to do that, or unnecessary, but this feels right. You're back, Dan.
Marion's done well to read my mind. You asked the question I wanted to ask, so beautiful.
Any questions, David? You've got some beautiful gratitudes that you're sharing, and wins and learnings that you've had so far. Any questions? Anything that feels confusing or clarifications that we can offer?
I think I've got to take a deeper dive into the structure of it all with the Enneagram. I missed a week there, so I've got some catching up to do. I probably, in looking at these things initially, just to be honest, sometimes I feel it feels difficult to just go into one box. And I feel like sometimes modeling can be, restrictive is not the right word, but it's, you sometimes become a little suspicious that are you all those things, and why is that the case? And so I think I need to immerse myself in a little bit more before I really, say too much about it. But on initial reaction was like, okay, I probably don't necessarily like being told straight away that I'm something straight off the page.
Mm-hmm.
Jacek, do you relate with that?
Yeah, I think I feel similar. And just working on my own on different situations in my life, and this course helps me to put things together. The structure of the course, it shows me it's something that it's a little bit easier to follow. my own thoughts and try to get rid of egos, trying to be honest and make my life simpler, happier, and perhaps yeah, feel free sort of because of it. So there will be less restrictions in my mind, and be more open-minded and to the world around me, and yeah. So and life on its own, it gives me a lot of challenges, a lot of different situations, and I'm trying to analyze them on my own. I'm trying to see how I can behave differently in the next time around. So trying to get this way, I'm trying to get rid of these egos and have more sort of more control, be more on top of the, and be calmer, more relaxed, and yeah, more effective in my life, sort of, with the things I'm doing.
Yeah, beautiful. There's one thing I want to say to what you're saying there, Jacek, and one to what you said, David. You know, these egos that we're looking to get rid of. Before we do that, it's really important to remember, and we've said this before, but it's a useful reminder that these patterns, these thinking patterns, behavioral patterns, the reason like these egos come up in the first place, they were developed somewhere in our life in response to particular situations and early in our life, most of them in the first 8 years. And we're going to learn why because of the brainwaves later on in this session. They were developed there to serve us, to protect us from pain, from fear. Yeah. And so whilst, you know, as we become adults, we're like, oh, this bloody ego thing, and it's annoying and I want to get rid of it. That's the general consensus and feeling, right? However, just to remember that it did serve us at some point, but it just no longer does anymore. Just like, you know, we've outgrown the clothes that we used to wear back then, we've emotionally outgrown these patterns as well. And the life situation we're in is just not the same as what it was when we were 8 years old or prior to that, you know, or even a bit later in childhood as well.
Also, adding to that who wants to get rid of it? Who's that? That's the ego, right? The ego wants to get rid of itself. So it's just to see it playing out and see the structures playing out, like looking through a cleaner window. First, the view was blocked by the window because there was more stuff on the window. We're learning to look through it. We're not getting rid of anything. The very thing that wants to get rid of it is the ego itself.
And so if you can imagine the energy to try and get rid of something, just like you're trying to push a car in one direction, what is your hand doing to that car when it's pushing it? It's adding a force. It's adding an energy. So it actually feeds it in one way, is what Sarah is saying. You know, so what happens if we don't want the ego, but we also don't push the ego away? What are we doing then?
Tough question.
Simply witnessing, yeah? And play with this, yeah? Simply witnessing. Because this thing, it's coming up again, or I want it to be like this instead. Either of the two is an energy, just feeds this ego, yeah? But can we silently witness? And here's the thing, we are already doing it. That silence, the only reason we can be aware of a thought or a behavior that's here is because there is silent awareness, loving awareness there already, always, and always has been, and always will be.
Jacek, for you, become objective to that energy that wants to get rid of the ego. Become objective to that one, lovingly.
And when you say become objective, what are you meaning by that?
See it playing out, see it as it is. That's not you. That's is another construction happening, just takes a little bit of a different color, different shape. That's not you. So now it sounds like you're more subject to it. I want to get rid of this ego. So you are something that wants to get rid of it. Become objective to that energy or the thought or whatever is happening there, the dynamic that wants to get rid of it. And the only way to do it is through loving eyes. Like, that's just the only way.
That's right, yeah.
And language, this is a really beautiful tool, and that you can carry on from this session for the rest of the course. Yeah, language is pivotal in all of this. How you speak to this, identification with the ego, and you'll hear it in other people sharing. Yeah, identification with the ego will sound like my thoughts when I am having a thought. Show me the thought that you just had. Where do you have it? Where is it? When, my behaviors, how are they yours? That like you own them in a box somewhere. Yeah, that's an identification with that thought, with that behavior. Instead, you can speak to, yeah, I noticed this thought coming up, or this feeling coming up, or I noticed the behavior that was playing out. And that is objectivity. That creates the space through language. And language is a really powerful tool because it really reflects how we are representing reality in here. Yeah. And so really creating that space with our words. Yeah, I'm noticing this come up for me, these thoughts, rather than I am thinking, which is the very identification with the thought, with the behavior. That's useful for everyone there. And I just wanted to add to David Spain's comment on, that feeling of, am I really all of those things in terms of that one predominant type? And the answer is you are all of those things, but not that predominant type, not just that predominant type. You are all of the types. Yeah, all of the types, all 9 types we contain within us as human beings. We contain the reformer, the helper, the achiever, the individualist, the thinker, investigator, the loyalist, enthusiast. You can hear all of these traits are within all human beings. We have access to them all, but easier access to some of them at the moment just because of the predominant set and cluster of thinking patterns that have come together that we have then been able to observe as human beings and gone, oh, that's a reformer or that's a helper, that we kind of archetyped them in that sense. But as we gain, particularly with the Enneagram, which is different to other personality profiling, where other personality profiling, Myers-Briggs, 16 personalities, whatever it might be, this is what you are, there's your strengths, there's your weaknesses, good luck in life, right? This here doesn't look to box you in, it looks to box you out, to gain flexibility. So you are not restricted to the patterns of this type, yeah? And you already have more access to the ones either side of that type and maybe across the lines. And as we continue to bring awareness in particular situations that it might be more useful to engage another type, like, ooh, I can see this would be easier to engage this reaction, but I can see that is actually more useful. This would be easier, but that would be more useful. And then you choose the more useful, effective response. And who wouldn't want that?
Working through the dominant type and the wings is just a start. Ultimately, you work through all the types. And you disidentify with all of it. We're showing you what you are not. But to know what you are is to show you what you are not. So it's to see it all playing out and become more and more and more objective to these different patterns in different type that we have mapped out in different typologies.
Thank you for those contributions. Do we have one more share? We've got about 5 minutes that we could go with here.
I'd love to share and say hi to everyone. I've been following at home on the recording, so lovely to be live with you all. I've really enjoyed the Enneagram, going deeper on this. I've been studying the Enneagram for a few years and done like extensive courses on it as well, like 7-day intensives, and I'm still sort of feeling like it's like my key ones are like the low hanging fruits, and I do on that. I can see those patterns, and then I'm working on my 9, my 2, and my 7 at the moment. I'm really enjoying just seeing those patterns pop up. And that whole, it's the habits and not who I am, which is really clear, because I kind of resonate with that other types. It's like, that's who I am. And now it's just like, oh, that's the pattern and not who I am. And then the more I can see the patterns, the more I then have freedom from the patterns by seeing it. So I'm just, and choosing a different behavior when I see it objectively. I'm like, oh, cool, there's my 2 bit. All right, let's not do that. Let's see what happens when I don't do that. And then I do a different action, and then life seems to reflect differently to me. So I've just been enjoying that. And it seems like it's a journey for me. It's a longer journey and takes time. And it's like, I need to work on this aspect and that aspect. Like you were saying, Sarah, it does feel like spending time with it and being okay with however long it takes. And I've been loving the sort of the lessons of each type and what I need to do that I may not have been doing before. And the blind spots that I've been seeing is so good. So thanks for that. It's been great.
Thanks, Seth. And who sometimes feels like they're on this journey alone? Firstly, who feels like they're on a journey in life? And who feels sometimes like they're on a journey alone? Look, are you? Look at this. Every single one of us beings and species on this planet are on this journey together. And all of the other beings also, we're just quite conscious of it, of the like how it's all playing out. So just remember this moment here if you ever feel like you're doing it alone in that sense.
A beautiful comment from Chris in the chat box, speaking to just something else that I was going to bring in as well. It's not necessarily around looking at like what are the traits of the other types that we have access to, but more so the virtue, more so the essence of all of the 9 types. So at the sort of highest level of health, the expression of the virtue of that type. So courage or playfulness or acceptance, looking at the virtues of the 9 rather than the traits of the 9 types, 9 types, not the 9 typology. Does that difference make sense?
That's kind of what I was leaning towards, Marion. It's, I guess, I found the Enneagram useful not for boxing me and saying, oh, this is who I am, kind of like a horoscope kind of thing, but more, okay, I recognize my weak points. And for me, it's more about, okay, what are the attributes that are contained within some of the other types that I can draw on in this situation. And I found that really useful. So for me, being a type 9, my weak point is I don't want to, I tend to avoid confrontation, for instance. So for me, it's kind of like channeling more of a queen energy and kind of stepping into, my inner queen and going, okay, I'm going to use my voice here and, speak my truth. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a beautiful example as well of looking at that, the positive expression of the virtues that are available across the spectrum of the Enneagram, and then noticing how the traits within a dominant personality type might constrict away from access to that essence, that virtue.
Was that your dog I could hear snoring, Christina?
Yes, I'm so
like,
sorry. I forget that people can hear her. It sounds like an old man snoring next to me, but it's my dog. Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. So the offer here is to, is there a trait that you would really love to shift that really you may have seen in your typology, looking through the readings or listening to the 30-minute comprehensive recording, and you're like, I definitely see that playing out for myself. Use the next 5 weeks to really carry that and bring awareness to that anywhere and everywhere that you can. and use us in regards to asking questions and asking for support. Yeah, it's what we're here for. So that's the offer with the personality types. And it's not to understand the entire Enneagram, but take a piece from what has been offered to this point, work with that, gain some depth in that, rather than trying to understand all of it and like getting as much information about the Enneagram and so on and so on. Start to work on one or two of the traits there, if that makes sense, and depth deep into those. Cool. We will be moving on now into levels of consciousness and stages of adult human development. So what we're going to be exploring here is, how do you currently receive feedback? So this next exploration, that's not necessarily going to be shared. We're not going into a breakout room, so you can openly and honestly just have a look at how you currently receive feedback, okay? Now, what you'll do is take 5 minutes to read through each of these and be honest with yourself. How is it that you normally receive feedback? And write that down for yourself. And as you're reading, notice maybe times in your life where you're receiving feedback in other ways that weren't so useful, but you had evolved out of them and become more embracing in how you received feedback and less rigid and limited in how you received feedback. And then also notice, oh, that sounds good. I'm definitely not doing that, but that sounds beautiful, to work towards that. So once again, we'll put some beautiful thinking music on for you. And this is related loosely to the stages of development. And we will, to kind of ground your sense for what is limited and rigid, and then what becomes more embracing, we're going to go into the stages a whole heap more related to this. But for now, spending the next 5 minutes writing down or having a read, understanding these, and writing down which one you feel that resonates most with you at the moment. When I say resonates, there's the one that, oh yeah, I'd really love to be doing that. And then there's, this is actually where I'm at right now. That honesty is what's going to allow for, an accelerated and rapid growth. Sorry.
Yeah. This also doesn't mean that you are at a particular level of consciousness or stage of development, regardless of whether it might be at some of the earlier stages or later stages. Feedback is just one way, and also feedback is quite a sensitive can be a sensitive thing to receive, and so it can often
create this, like bring out a earlier stage of development, even if we might be sitting at a later stage. So it's just to get an understanding of the stages of going from that limited and rigid way of being into a more all-embracing way of being.
Just to add on to that, Dan, it was feedback is a beautiful situation to show how we view through a stage. So similar to like a viewpoint on rungs of a ladder. Not one rung is necessarily better than another one, but there's a higher viewpoint that's able to hold more perspective as the rungs are climbed. And so the viewing point or the perspective on feedback changes at the different stages of development. That's what for any stage of development, looking at a situation through that stage is sort of the relevance here.
Anyone that would like a couple more minutes? Just a thumbs up if that's a yes, and keep it up for a little bit.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go for it.
Hello. When I take feedback, I have something in my head where I'm like, I think the other people will think that I'm thinking that the other people will think that I think that I'm too good to listen to the feedback. If that makes sense.
Can you ask that question again?
So it's like when I take feedback, it's like I'm really like open to it. And there's something in me that's like the other person will think that I think that I'm too good to listen to their feedback or something. I don't know.
And is there a question in that?
Yeah, like do you reckon you could help me break it down in that?
What would you like to break down about it?
In the sense that I'm thinking that the other people will think that I think that I'm too good to listen to the feedback. So it's like, what's in me that will be thinking that the other person will be thinking that? I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, so that I'm hearing that that's something that you experience when feedback gets offered up, that you're saying you're completely fine with it, but that you find that yourself thinking about the fact that they might be thinking that you think that you're too good to hear the feedback. Is that right?
Yeah.
And are you wondering how that's related to the stages of development, or is it more an observation from your end?
More so is that.
Where do you see that come into here? If you want to share that, yeah, in regards to these levels here, where would that land for you?
Probably I view feedback as disapproval, but also welcome it at the same time.
Yes, there's one other one where it could fit, but that's definitely, these aren't sort of black and white, but that's definitely one where it could fit into for sure.
Yeah.
And so as you're reading these, really reading, okay, that seems really rigid, put it on the rigid and limiting scale, and then as you read through them, see where they land on the spectrum on the way to being more and more and more embracing and open and accepting. Yeah.
Also, Rich, for you as a inquiry into that, what is the positive intention of you thinking that they think that you might feel too good to receive the feedback? What is the positive intention of that thought? You don't have to answer it right now, but you can, but it's more an inquiry process.
Thank you.
Yeah, actually, the one that you mentioned, Bridge, was the one I was looking for, because it's also got internal dialogue about intent or that playing out. So, yeah. Beautiful. Anyone that needs any more time with writing this down for themselves? Thumbs up if you're all good and don't need any more time. Thumbs up. Yeah. Cool. Oh, yeah. Oh, good. Okay. And so now we're going to do a little bit of an overview of the developmental stages of consciousness, just a bit of a refresher, because you're then going to order those ways of receiving feedback from most limiting and rigid to most embracing. And so they're loosely related to the stages of consciousness. And it's not as though that each level belongs to another stage, right? But they're more on a spectrum, and there'll be two that belong in one stage, for instance, an earlier part of that stage and a later part. But this is a refresher of the stages of consciousness, and then we're going to loosely apply that to ordering those from 1 to 7, I think it was. So we're going to be exploring, I think it's 6 stages that are most related to this feedback here. Whilst there's an additional 3 there, we're going to be looking at 6 at the moment, 6 or 7. And so the first one being red, which is really my way. Power and action, aggressive, impulsive, ruthless, courageous, determined. Yeah. Egocentric. Then we move up into ethnocentric, where we have amber. It's our way. It's not my way, the individual. It's about the collective, groupthink, the truth force. The way that we think is the truth, often found in fundamental religion or nationalism. Values, rules, roles, discipline. This is the amber level there. And you can see how we start at the red with most rigidity and limitation, where we kind of just go all in, gung-ho, and, you know, impulsive, ruthless, aggressive. And then move up, and there's a bit of an opening into others, but it's just our truth, yeah? And then we move into modern, orange, the strive, drive, achiever mind, where most of Australia, amber and orange, is currently sitting, America and the UK as well. Rational reason, science, third person objective, success, autonomy, self-reliance, and individualism comes back in. Becoming successful is really important as an individual here, and taking things personally, because it's about me and what I stand for here. And then there's green, postmodern, still in the world-centric, where you dive into a deeper human bond, community, harmony. It's again moves from the individual and into the group. Equality, all is equal, all is equal. Hierarchy isn't necessarily looked upon fondly. It's really about care and relativistic perspectives. Everything is relative, nothing is absolute. And there's a sensitivity in this green space. There's environmentalism, a care for more than what we are here or what we've been doing, all the success and all that sort of stuff. And then we go into the third tier, the first tier of integral, teal, where you have more flex and flow. Again, it opens up into being more embracive. This level sees natural hierarchy and systems and holds multiple perspectives and is quite flexible. So it allows for hierarchy. It's not necessarily a better than, it's just as nature has it, natural hierarchy. You have the whole of the nucleus within a cell, and the whole of the cell within the multicellular organism, but you don't have the whole of the multicellular organism within the whole of the cell, and you don't have the whole of the cell within the nucleus. So that's a natural hierarchy, and it allows for that without the ego maybe that comes in at the orange level or amber level of a power over in terms of hierarchy and the rigidity. And then still in the integral cosmocentric, you have turquoise, where there's a global view and all is seen as construct of the mind. As it arises, it's all being constructed of the mind. All thought is a construct of the mind. All perspective, a construct of the mind, and it is seen in the moment. It sees the world as alive and evolving. Everything is alive, from your body to the tree being no different to the soil and the sky. A holistic and cosmocentric view here. These are going to be the main ones. If you can see the key words there, as it goes from most rigidity and limitation in a way of being to more and more and more and more embracing. And then we're not focusing on these today, but you also have finish off here with post-integral, indigo, and down here, archaic, infrared, and magenta in spirits, all in the egocentric. And so, can you order this feedback? Like we said, it's not each one of these belongs in only one of the stages, but it's along a spectrum and can be a little bit in between. Yeah. Try to just sense into it as to how you would, what's your sense of what is limiting, what is rigid in a way of being, and what is your sense as you read these as what is more embracing, and try and order them from 1 being most rigid to 7 being most embracing. We'll give you 5 to 7 minutes in doing that as well. Is everyone happy with the music so far? Yeah, okay. Thanks, Bridge. So placing a letter and a number next to each other. Maybe even start with 1 at the bottom, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then put the letters next to them as you go. Lawrence, do you mind muting any unmuted? Just quiet, and that's it. go for a couple minutes more. By no means the easiest of exercises, but because of that, there's a whole heap of learning available here. Okay, rewind down there. Anyone need a little more time? 60 seconds maybe? Or you're all good? Thumbs up if you're all good. And assuming that all my cameras are thumbs up. Okay, so would anyone like to take us through their ordering?
I will.
Awesome. Let's go for it, Justine. What was the first one? What was number one?
When you say number one, do you mean the top of your previous diagram where?
The bottom.
The bottom. Okay. So I had C as the bottom.
Okay, let's have a look. Boom. C. So provocating experiences feedback as an attack. Can you see that in that red level of consciousness? Yeah. As an attack, provocating, can quickly shift blame. Yeah.
I saw that it was a rejection response, but it was externalized.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought the next was G, because it was dismissive, but E. So I thought it was G because G is dismissive, but
yeah. And so
then I had E.
What was your next one?
I had E as the next one.
Mm-hmm. So let's have a look at those. Very close together, obviously. Yeah. You had view feedback as disapproval or as a reminder of norms. So if you think about the amber level of consciousness, which is very much a club mentality, whether it's fundamental religion or nationalism or whatever it might be, disapproval from that group, right? And a reminder of the norms of that group and discomfort being shown up by the group. Does that make sense?
I thought it does actually, but I thought it might have been the other way around because it seemed to be still, G seemed to still be quite an external response,
And
where E looked like it was something sort of more internalized and maybe a little bit more logic applied. But I can see why that's that way.
Yeah, so just to speak to G, because they're very similar. Yeah, very similar. Just to speak to G, the key difference here is there's a reference to, take it personally, defend own position. That moves more into that orange, rational reason, individualism. Yeah, dismiss feedback from those who are not seen as experts in the same field. Yeah, so that's around that rational reason, science, orange achiever, corporate, and so on. You would see a lot of that there. Whereas E is more around the norms of the group, whatever that group is, the nation, the religion, even like some sort of a community, whatever else. Cool. What was your next one?
F, I thought it seemed to be about tolerance, still rejection, but a bit more about tolerance. I had A.
Where'd you place A?
Well, the next one, because I chose yeah, A, thinking there was more acceptance in A. You're going to say it's F, aren't you?
So you can see how close these are on this spectrum in that sense, and welcoming feedback, especially if it helps them to achieve their goals and improve. So you can see this being more of a healthy orange. So it's still in orange, just as G was, but G was a more unhealthy expression of orange level of consciousness, the rational reason individualism, like I need to defend my own position, versus I'm welcoming feedback because it helps me to achieve my goals and improve, and I'm open to that and understand that. Yeah. And then F, view feedback as necessary to uncover hidden aspects of their own behavior. You can see how there's an opening there that becomes more embracing in that sense. So what makes this even...
F is the reason that F is different to A is because F can also acknowledge own conditioning. So this is more towards green, and green can more see, oh, there's a subjective perspective playing out here, and there are different subjective perspectives in other individuals. So I can see it's a necessary part to uncover hidden aspects of the subjective perspective that's playing out here. Whilst orange is more, let's welcome feedback in so I can achieve my goals. It's less about the discovery around what are the hidden patterns and so on within the construct, within the subjective self, which comes more alive in green. Does that make sense to everyone? To just, yeah?
It's more and more introspective in a healthy way, and exploring internally in a healthy way. What do you have next, Jess?
D. I just thought D is sort of inviting that development and growth, but not quite there yet. Yeah,
beautiful. So invite feedback for self-actualization, and self-actualization is really around being the best version of yourself, and it starts to move into being of service in that sense. Actualizing one's place in this world, really, and conflict is seen as an inevitable part of viable / multiple relationships. So conflict starts to be seen as healthy in that sense, and we're really moving into, upper green and early teal integrated level of consciousness, where division is often like, oh, it's so negative and so on and so on, but division actually creates for the emergence of something new again, and division is playing out in nature everywhere. You see parts of cells dividing all the time and then get recreated, but our human mind at particular stages sees division or conflict as a negative thing, but it's more about how we do the conflict. Yeah, how do we navigate that conflict, rather than, we could be fighting with spears or navigating that in a useful and effective way.
Yeah, the difference there is that conflict is seen as at this more towards tail. Conflict is always invited because it's known that supports that self-actualization, and that self-actualization is for the greater good. So it's not so much for the self here, for my individual self, but for humanity and reality and nature as a whole.
Oh, I didn't ask you about that, but
there was only one left.
And so hold feedback as a natural part of living system. Where else can you see feedback playing out in the world? From weather systems, nature, our bodies feeding information back to us, and then like, oh, well, I'm going to put a jumper on, right? I'm going to eat now. That's feedback. I'm going to go to the bathroom. And so really seeing it as no different, right? The feedback from one another, and necessary for learning and change, and see it as not fundamentally different from praise, right? Both the same thing on the one spectrum.
Different parts of reality relating with each other, communicating with each other. And it's a natural part of reality.
There's a radical acceptance and compassion for one's own and others' humanity. Yeah. Our amazingness and also our fallibility, how we're all prone to error, and how that's a beautiful part of our humanity in that sense. Any questions there? Might not have any, it might just be dropping in. Go for it. Mel.
I have a question. When we speak of feedback, what are we talking about? You know, like constructive criticism, feedback from a friend, what is the feedback we talk to? Because this speaks for, and maybe
Sorry, Mel, just I'm going to interrupt you there. We can't, it's really hard to hear you from here. Maybe there's
It's just
something.
muffled.
Oh, no. I don't know why. Okay. Just what I'll sort it out here. I don't know why it's doing it. It must be my speaker.
Now it's better.
Okay. Okay.
Go for it though.
better.
If you
Try
lean
it
forward,
again.
for some reason it's working. So
Bring my computer right here. What is the feedback? The feedback we're getting that we react to? Is this simply feedback from a co-worker, feedback from a family member, or is it, you know, because sometimes that's not done with a loving intent. Oh, I guess everyone's done with a loving intent. What is the feedback we're speaking of?
So my understanding of your question was, what kind of feedback are we speaking of in different contexts? So whether it's at work or at family, and also what is the intent from the other of giving the feedback? Is that right? Yeah, so we're really speaking about feedback in different contexts, but it might be that in a particular context, you actually you receive feedback in a different way than in another context. That might be dynamic. It's not that you cross-contextually respond in the same way to feedback. So that might be different. And then the intent of the feedback, yeah, that's we don't know that unless we ask and check in with the person. Hey, what is your intent of sharing this with me?
And Mel, as we mature more and more through those stages, it actually doesn't matter about the intent of the other person. It doesn't matter. The context doesn't matter, because regardless of what the intent is or the context, it's water off a duck's back and able to not be moved by it, but to use it where it's useful and to discern where it is and isn't. The more we mature through those stages, yeah?
In a sense, feedback becomes less personalized. So where at the earlier stages it's more personal, like maybe it validates someone believes in oneself or some value in oneself, and it might be more in a work context and in other contexts at some places. And then at some point it doesn't matter because it doesn't define me as a person, and therefore it's not personalized. So it's beyond that personal as well. So it's out of that, which really starts to occur at turquoise, where transpersonal awareness starts to come in. So not from the personal. Also at teal a little bit, by the way.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
If you are receiving feedback and you're holding the other person, it's their reality, it's their truth, so it's completely valid, you know. While you're doing that, if you're doing that, are you having to, I'm wondering if I'm having to do that to cope with the feedback because it's uncomfortable, if that's a coping strategy, you know, to think, oh, that's their reality, so that it doesn't hurt?
Could be, but it could also be simply a noticing that it's completely their reality, because it's completely a subjective sharing what they do. Feedback actually is simply saying, Georgina, this you said A, B, C, and D, and this is what I heard. Feed forward is I'm sharing my opinion with you, and that's totally their opinion, right? So that's totally in their subjective perspective. But you will know, Georgina, if there's a sense for you of like, oh, it's easier to just say it's your subjective perspective, I don't need to hear it. Or if you can hold it and see it's a subjective perspective that's true, I can hear it and hold it, and I can see what I can do with that, and if that's useful for me. And you will know if there's a resistance or if there's like an embrace in that sense.
Yeah, so there's a clear difference between, yeah, that's just your stuff. Even if it's an internal dialogue happening for you and it's, yeah, that's just their stuff, or, oh yeah, that's their stuff, so it's not really about me, and so on and so on. And you can hear the shying away from where there might be something playing out here and worth receiving from them in that sense. And so really being open and more embracing to what's being received. And yeah, and we can feel that if we're true with ourselves in the moment, we can feel when we're just doing it from a little bit more of a contracted state, like either fearful or a little more agitated, like, why are you telling me this? Or whether we're really cleanly hearing it, oh yeah, that's coming up for me, I can feel that doesn't feel that comfortable, but that's okay, I'm hearing what you're saying, not really seeing that part of it. You might ask some questions and allowing for that navigation and for that exploration of what others might call conflict in that sense as well.
Also what might help here, what might support here, if there's a sense of like, oh, the moment someone gives me feedback, I feel that contraction, I feel that disapproval, that dislike, I don't feel valuable, whatever comes up there, what you can lean into is get really curious around the other person's perspective. Get curious around what is their positive intention, because there's always a positive intention. Why are they sharing this with me? What is the positive intention? If you can't directly see it, ask it potentially, but that in and of itself brings you to a more open state and a more embracing state, which naturally just expands that awareness rather than contraction. So it's really easy way. Get curious and ask for the positive intention.
Yeah, what's that feedback on behalf of? Particularly if it's, or any feedback actually, could be in the workplace. Oh, where did that feedback come from? And you might learn something. And if it's a little more conflict related, knowing that it's highly likely that that's coming from a place of deeper fear for them and that reaction, and unable to necessarily control the situation.
Also, feedback is just one example that we took as a concept through these different stages. This happens all the time with different values, different beliefs. So notice this as you see values being challenged. What is the contraction? What can you get curious about? What is the other person's perspective, and so on? And that's just, we're just using feedback as one example now, but you can really place anything there, really.
And to close off, stages of development, remembering that these are stages. Yeah, no stage is better than the other, because if it was, it would be the same as saying that being a teenager is better than being an infant, or an adult is better than being a teenager. So it's really about maturing in a healthy way, not trying to get somewhere else, but really grounding where you're at now in the healthiest possible way, and whether that be with feedback or any interaction that's playing out.
And again, also, if there's a contraction in the body to, let's say, what is in this model represented as one of the earlier stages, that is just simply a momentary contraction. It's not who you are. It doesn't define you. You are not the construct. So you can't be the one that receives feedback anyway. It depends to what degree are you distracted down into narrowness, into contraction. Can that open up? And that's one of the tools to open up, is get curious and see the positive intention. And it's just that constant practice. And it might be a bit of a play in the beginning, and at some point you will get more used to it. And that in and of itself facilitates your way back to what is already true. You're not becoming more or becoming better. It's not something that exists in reality. So
you are all enlightened Buddhas already, actually, but just distracted into a different idea of yourselves. Yeah? And all of the incredible teachers that have walked this earth would say the same thing. And it's a mistaken identity that we each have of ourselves, that we're distracted into and think that we are something that we are actually not. Yeah. that a question, Kate?
Yeah. Thanks for spotting it. So on the back of what Georgina said, I find I really relate to the contracting, and then the only place for me to go is, okay, this is just your perspective, Kate, in my mind. And that everything you say after that already leads me into a state of openness. And I feel I can practice that in the moment when it comes up. But I do notice that as a default, which is probably Enneagram related, but it's cool to ask, maybe Georgina, you do this, but I look, the places that it really gets me stuck is when, yes, it's context dependent on how attached I am to who is speaking to me and what we're speaking about. But when I'm looking, or I feel like there's in the we space, we're looking for common ground to settle together, to agree. And that's where the different opinions coming in, or different feedback of this is how it is, this is how it is. I find from my perspective, it seems like the other person is speaking their perspective to find common ground with me. And sometimes it's really difficult. Like I almost create a version of my reality that matches theirs in the way I think that they can comprehend it, to find a sort of falseness in common ground. So I don't know if it's just letting go of looking for that connection, that illusion of getting a connection from agreeing in conversation, but I find it comes up all the time, that there's a wanting in society as we connect, as we interact, to accept each other, to be in agreement is a thing that we are looking for. From my perspective, it seems. I'm not sure though. I think I can let go of it, but yeah, I just want to throw it out there.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're looking for belonging. It also presupposes that you don't belong already. So there has to be a sense of a separate self in order to need to belong, or in order to agree.
So is that like going into that conversation, there's probably an aspect happening in here that is looking for belonging subconsciously, and that it can get something out of that conversation, and therefore the way the feedback happens can impact my state.
Yeah, so potentially there it's to simply agree to disagree. And not even see it as agreement or disagreement, because those are actually dualities as well. It's simply information that's being shared.
In reality, it's just words coming out.
Yeah, it's just words coming out, and you place some meaning on that. But if you just hear the words as they are, for what they are.
But without going too far into disregarding that opinion and just calling it, this is just noise, like that. Yeah. That's where I can swing sometimes.
Yeah, sure. So it's to hold it all lightly, and not like, oh, this is noise, because if it's genuinely seen through, then it can just be there, but not bother you, right?
And notice what's noticing that you've been impacted by it, by the feedback. Yeah. Notice what noticed you being impacted by it, because you mentioned that you get impacted by it. Notice what noticed that. And that's what you are in that sense. Yeah. Beautiful. Moving along, if there are questions, please write them down, send them through email or Telegram, and maybe we'll create a video or we'll find a way to answer the questions for you. We're here to support you. Okay. Yep, that's what I wanted to do. Actually, we'll take a moment in a moment. Actually, let's take a 20-second moment. Yeah? Who said moments need to be 5 minutes? Punctuating moments throughout the day. Let's close our eyes, notice our breath, release the tension. Over to you. Taking a deep breath in and all the way out. Gently opening your eyes. Noticing that even the subtlest of shifts in state are worth the shift. Yeah. It's not black or white, going or not going. If I shift out of this going mode, am I not going to be able to go anymore and do? And we're going to move into that now with self-regulation, something that you've all been doing with your sitting practice already, with your noticing and observation of the breath and body awareness, and through your body awareness, allowing for pockets of tension in the body to be released and melted away. That's regulating your state so that you can live from a more generative and easeful state throughout your life. Now, is there anything in your life that you wouldn't want to do from a state of ease? Anything. Even when you're heading to the gym and you need to pump out that weight, well, next time you try that, or you're running really quickly, notice, is there unnecessary tension being held here? Can I be exerting force whilst in a state of ease as well? Yeah. And so shifting gears through brainwave frequencies, and this is integral health and well-being, and it's integrally informed, because we are delving into and playing with the upper right quadrant here, the brain waves, and observing this from a science point of view, science objective point of view. Now, here's a beautiful table that highlights the benefits and functions associated with key brainwave frequencies. And it goes from highest, most frequent brainwaves, beta frequency brainwaves, to slower and slower and slower brainwaves down at delta, sub-delta frequency down here. Now, earlier on, I'm not going to speak to this right side just yet. I'm going to speak to the years at the moment. Earlier on, we spoke to how the construct gets developed predominantly in the first 8 years of one's life. This beta brainwave frequency is the highest frequency, and it's where hyperfocus or emergency occurs, emergency type of focus occurs. And that analytical thinking occurs in beta frequency. Delta is deep dreamless sleep. Now, when we're born, delta brainwave frequency is the only brainwave frequency that is playing out through the brain. It's why an infant, newborn, will be constantly sleeping in and out of that sleep every 60 to 90 minutes, feeding. And then we start to develop about 2 years onwards, theta brainwave frequency, slightly faster. This is deep relaxation, meditation, emotional processing happens here, new information, memory consolidation. So meditation and a deeper relaxation are theta brainwave frequency. And then we move on to alpha brainwave frequency, about 6 years onwards. It's not until 6 years that this starts to get developed. This is a softer focus, not hyper focus, but a softer focus, similar to reading a book. And then we move into the analytical brainwave frequency, beta brainwave frequency, the hyper focus with increased energy levels and clear thinking, but also that emergency mode kicks in. There's rapid thought generation. Now, what has this got to do with our development as human beings? Because it's not until the beta brainwave frequency around the 8 to 12 year mark develops that a human brain is able to discern between what is useful and true and what is not so useful and true. So up until this point, with delta, theta, and alpha, it's taking everything on to simply be true, right? So parents, based on their own conditioning, with all loving intent, will offer up certain stories about things, maybe money stories or boys don't cry or whatever it might be. And if that's happening in those first 8 years of life, that's just being taken on. It's like the mind of a child up until 8 years of age has its hands tied behind its back and receives everything to be true. And then that forms a very solid part of the persona, personal reality, the personality. So really useful to know that. And now, what do we do with that now? In Western culture, we spend most of our time throughout the day, it's kind of how the system's designed, in beta brainwave hyperfocus, constantly needing to be doing. Now, is there anything wrong with beta brainwave frequency? No, super useful. Increased energy levels, clear thinking, outward awareness, full alertness. All useful things, right? Not so useful if we don't step out of that. If we don't take a moment to just shift gears into something slightly slower, momentarily into alpha brainwave frequency, a softer focus where there's information processing, relaxed memory and creative flow states, improved HRV, serotonin production, and reduced cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. You're going to see these are the benefits of dropping down, and we'll predominantly be speaking to dropping down because we're spending so much time up in beta. These are the benefits of dropping down into a slightly slower frequency via what? Body awareness, releasing tension. Just closing your eyes and becoming aware of your forehead or your shoulder. Already you experience that, and try it on for yourself next time you close your eyes, is that mild shift in state. Then if we allow ourselves to drop into, focusing on our breath and being diligent with focusing on the breath and body awareness and releasing tension and just being diligent with that, thought comes in, we continue with that. We go into deep relaxation meditation where emotional processing is allowed to happen and there's new information memory consolidation. So we actually consolidate new information better. Enhanced immune function, neurochemicals including vasopressin and catecholamine, which are all related to healthy brain function. So this is a deeper meditation state. And then there's delta, subdelta, which is deep, dreamless sleep. Pain relief happens here. Immune function, healing and anti-aging hormones, cortisol reduction and pituitary release of human growth hormone for repair of the body. Now you can see how that would be incredibly useful, but a lot of our sleep is not being spent in deep sleep or REM sleep, particularly if we've spent all day not dropping into some of shifting gears into an alpha or theta brainwave frequency. If we're constantly on, how can we expect the system to just drop into a deep sleep? Something that we are all exposed to and currently exposed to on the screen. White and blue light shoots you into beta brainwave frequency like that, immediately, whether it's on the phone or the laptop. Increased energy levels, alertness. You can overdo it and you get fatigued anyway, but the brain's still wanting to be going. Yeah. So the question is, how often do you whip the phone out when you wake up? How soon do you first expose yourself to the phone when you wake up? Do you allow for some time between waking up and exposing yourself to that phone or a screen? Because otherwise what's happening, if you're in a deep sleep, you kind of wake up, look at the phone and start scrolling through, you've just shot yourself into beta brainwave emergency mode, hyper focus. Is that what you're wanting to be doing to the system? Do this regularly enough, and you might not feel the effects now, or in 5 years, but in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, this is where all of stroke, heart attack, autoimmune, cancers, all of this stuff, the strain on this physical vessel that is carrying our consciousness, that's where it all comes from. Okay? Inflammation caused by cortisol constantly being on and on, the stress hormone. And you can see that with each of these, there's reduced cortisol. Does it say it here? Well, with each of them, there's reduced cortisol. Cortisol reduction, and it happens at theta as well. And so there will be a health and well-being. Oh, sorry, actually, the other bit that I wanted to add was the other end of the day. So how late, how close to going to bed are you exposing yourself to a screen, to blue and white light, the phone? We've noticed it with these calls because we tend to go to sleep at 8:30, 8:45. We jump off of this call, have a tea, go into bed, and the mind's just going. Also partially due to presenting or facilitating, but also exposure to the screen. So can you allow an hour? Get everything set the alarm, don't need to look at it, put it on flight mode. If you need to keep your phone in the room, maybe for the meditation in the morning, don't take it off flight mode so you can't be scrolling through things in the morning. If you don't need the phone in there, we've just started putting the phone into the living room and then going to bed, and with an analog clock if we want to have a look at what time it is in the morning. Yeah. So these are just healthy habits that we're looking to adopt. Just quickly here, there is a masculine and feminine, which has nothing to do with gender, spectrum. Masculine is more doing, directive, analytical, and we all hold masculine and feminine. Doing, directive, analytical with masculine, and feminine is more open, rest, and recovery and receiving. As a human, we have capacity for both. Beta brainwave frequency is more around the doing, doing, doing. And as you drop into the softer, slower states, you are opening yourself up into more open, rest, and recovery, receiving, being able to receive more information as well. There will be more on the masculine, feminine polarity and dynamic in the next course. Okay, so let's take a moment and experience this for ourselves. Yeah. I'm going to completely hand this over to you. You can breathe through the nose a little firmer with your Ujjayi breath. Allow all of the breath out and continue to be diligent with allowing your awareness to hold the breath, all the body and the tension. And if the mind comes in, relax, release, and return. Relax, release, and return. And allow your attention to be, your awareness to be with the breath, with the body. And experience the shift for yourself. Over to you. Slowing down. And as you sit there, opening up and allowing regenerative, restorative state to wash over you. As your breath slows down, allow all of that to continue to do so, whilst gently opening your eyes. Continuing to breathe through your nose, being aware of your breath with your eyes open. Aware of the breath when it's going in. Aware of the breath when it's going out. Aware of any tension that is ready to melt away from your face, eyes, jaw, shoulders. Notice that even with eyes open, this self-regulation can occur. You could be in the middle of a conversation and allow this slowness to kick in, this gentleness to kick in. It doesn't need, whilst it's still available, it doesn't need you to go off and sit for 20 to 30 minutes. Are you at ease? Check in with yourself multiple times throughout the day. Am I at ease? No need to analyze it. You know if you're not, you know if you are. If you're not, become at ease. Check in again and check in again. Set some reminders if you like, on the hour, every hour. And so for this week's practice, the SAP practice, self-awareness practice, write an intention for how you would like to show up for the rest of the course. What are the key things you're going to focus on? At least 1 point, no more than 3. Yeah, it might be linked to the thing that you were expecting to shift already, but it hasn't. What's the difference that's going to make the difference? What are you specifically going to do differently? And then for the health and well-being practice, given that what we're wanting to do with the sitting practice is to continue on, whether it's 5 minutes that you're doing every day or 10 minutes, you can open that up to 15 minutes. Allow yourself on some days, trial that, yeah. But to allow that consistency with the sitting practice, with your 2 pillars of breath awareness and letting go of tension through body awareness. Yeah. Consolidate that, continue on. And so with the health and well-being practice, the little practice for the next 7 days, see how you go on an everyday basis, and you can share in your group. Know and go into it with a strong intention if this feels like it would be useful for you. No non-work related social media or tech before 12 p.m. If you need to jump in to shoot back a message on Messenger or Instagram or an email, sure, right? But if it's not work related and you find yourself then scrolling, notice it, let go, or notice the urge to do so and let go. And at least no phone for the first hour of waking up. Allow your body to wake up naturally without shooting yourself into emergency mode. And then no blue or white light 1 hour before bed or from wake up. So that's the other part of the practice. Create a morning routine. Create an evening routine. Morning routine with your sitting practice, washing your face, little bit of movement, moving any which way you want, or some 5-minute yoga flow or an actual class. Evening routine might be, sweet, putting everything, all tech to bed, I'm going to buy my favorite tea, or I'm going to start drinking tea that doesn't have caffeine in it. I'm going to buy a book and I'm going to read at night to go into that softer focus until I don't feel like doing that. And oh, maybe I feel like sitting for 5 minutes and then I'm going to go to bed. Yeah, spend half an hour in bed before falling asleep, but not on the laptop or not on the phone. Yeah. And decide for yourself how many days you want to. Everyone here can easily go, I am not doing this anymore for the next 7 days. As in, I'm not picking that phone up. I'm not going to be on the screen so late at night. There might be 1 or 2 days where it still happens. Notice what happened, what was different there. Notice the moment where you noticed the urge to pick it up, the device, and just went for it instead. And that's okay. Because if you notice it there, next time it's going to make it easier to simply, there is nothing to do when we're trying to not engage the ego. What needs to be done to not engage the ego is this. So it's a practice. Yeah. Easier said than done, but actually that easy. It's a practice. Any questions?
Dan, how does the no tech with like 1 hour of waking up work with the insight timer? Because I normally kind of do my meditation first thing in the morning.
Yeah, so if you can put a yellow filter which removes the white and blue light, particularly if you're using it for meditation in that sense. And it's more around the aimless scrolling through, because even if you're not paying attention to any of the scrolling or anything that you're scrolling through, if your eyes have been exposed to it, it's stuff that's taking up headspace unnecessarily already in your day when you've just woken up from a beautiful sleep. Yeah. So in stuff like Insight Timer, we're kind of using that tech as best as we can. And at some point, you might not use that at all and simply sit without a timer at all. But for now, it can be, outweighing the good.
Thank you.
You can do the same on your laptop. You can have a timer on that in the evening it colors. It goes away from the blue white light and it goes into more that orange yellow kind of light. Like you can do all of that in installations on laptop as well. If you're, for example, on a course late, then you can still watch the course, but through that light is already better than the blue and white light in that sense.
Yeah, there's also those glasses, but it's not a matter of like, sweet, now I can sit on the computer all night long or whatever else. It's to allow that morning and an evening ritual for the sake of your body as well, in the long run, so that you can be here to serve the purpose that you are to serve, which is to serve whatever that is, as a mother, as a father, as a human, as a species, as a whatever work you're doing. Yeah. Any other questions around those brainwave frequencies?
It's more just on that no tech before 12, or mostly on the scrolling. One of the other benefits, if you're looking for more reasons why, is there's a thing called, you can even find a little video, it's called dopamine fasting. And so it's looking at periods of time when we're not getting dopamine hits. And when you're on the scrolling, I'm guilty of it as well, because I'm getting a dopamine hit by not doing that and giving a window where I can't have dopamine there, my dopamine receptors will start to fill up. So then I'll have more dopamine for doing good stuff with. So another benefit to it.
Dopamine, motivation, feel good.
Yeah, there's a good little video if you Google dopamine fasting.
Does anyone need any, how's everyone going with their sitting? You've got a regular sitting practice happening, even if it's of 10 seconds, it was all about developing that habit in the first place. And if you're allowing yourself to deepen it, go for it and let that next one be a whole heap longer. How's everyone going with it? Who would love like a little bit of support? Let's go thumbs this way for a little bit of support, and we can reach out. Or just reach out to us. Oh yeah, cool. Ash, Georgina, cool. We'll reach out around the sitting practice. And is there anything you'd like to discuss now or prefer to reach out? Discuss now, reach out. Cool. Cool. Anything else arising for anyone else? Awesome. Enjoy your beautiful selves, and we will see you next week for Native Perspectives, which will be a beautiful, beautiful week. So looking forward to that one. See you soon.
See you later.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Oh.